Hey everyone, especially to our research advisor, Dr. Alexander Mosqueda, and to our two panel members. We would also like to extend our greetings to the research assistants, co-advisees, and the third year students present today. We are fourth-year BET Chemical Engineering Technology students conducting a research study entitled The Microgasification of the Cocoa Lumber Residue Used in TLUD Microgasifier Cooking Stove. Today, we will present the 5 parts of our research paper highlighting the results and interpretation we gathered from the data of our testing. The first part is the introduction, wherein I will present the background of the study, problem statement, objectives of the study, conceptual framework, significance of the study, and scope and limitation. Background of the study. The Philippine Statistics Authority state that in the Philippines, it is estimated that nearly 40% or around 9 million households still use an open-air wood-fueled stove, making it the most used method of cooking, with LPG as the second with 36.9% households. From the systematic review of the data provided by the World Health Organization, it shows that there is a high level of emissions of particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and other health-damaging pollutants into the immediate environment of a household that uses open-air cooking stoves. The most effective way to address this situation is to recreate the devices that must be used in converting solid fuel into a usable cooking heat called pyrolysis. That device is called gasifier since it has a controlled way to produce its own gas from solid biomass. We will now then move on to the next part of the introduction, which is the problem statement. Here we have 4 questions that we aim to answer. These are: how efficient is a TLUD microgasifier stove in gasification of the cocoa lumber residue? What is the impact of air intake to the microgasification of the cocoa lumber residue? What are the characteristics of the byproduct produced during testing? And will the heat produced be sufficient to reduce the remaining moisture content of solid fuel? Next will be the objectives of our study, which aims to determine the performance of the TLUD microgasifier stove in using cocoa lumber residue as solid fuel. The objectives of our study also includes the following: to determine the efficiency of the coke stove in the microgasification of cocoa lumber in terms of solid fuel consumption rate, temperature change, thermal efficiency, and solid fuel consumption, determination of the components of the byproduct produced, determine the efficiency rate of the charcoal chamber as a drying chamber for low moisture content solid fuel. Next will be the conceptual framework, wherein it can identify the concept of the study. The figure presented on the screen shows the concept that we use to examine how a TLUD microgasifier cooking stove works. Thus, the input, process, and the output section will be the guidelines to determine the effectiveness of the cooking stove. After knowing the process, we can determine the importance of our study. In this note, we will now proceed to the significance of the study. This research seeks to provide the necessary information in the effective microgasification of the solid fuel cocoa lumber residues using the TLUD microgasifier coke stove. As a result, it can produce charcoal, which, like biochar, can be utilized as a solid fuel to improve soil productivity. This study will also provide information towards the capability of one of the features of this TLUD microgasifier stove, which is the drying chamber. And lastly, the scope and limitations in which our research study is limited and is focused on the efficiency of TLUD microgasifier stove in the microgasification of our solid fuel, the cocoa lumber residue. Its efficiency will be tested using fuel consumption rate, thermal efficiency, burning rate, and solid fuel consumption. The rate of production of heat, ash, and charcoal will also be determined after the test of the microgasifier stove. In the controlled cooking test, the research study only focused on the MSME product, banana Q.